Welcome to Nexus Clinical. Before diving into this lecture, I want to ensure we're all on the same page. This is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient or pharmacist-patient relationship is formed. Using this information and the materials linked to this content is at the user's risk. This is not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay seeking medical advice for any medical condition they have, and they should consult their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Clinical experts created the references, content, and clinical insight. NotebookLM, a Google AI tool, created the content, which I extensively reviewed before release. Finally, the host states that he takes all conflicts of interest seriously. Currently, there are no conflicts to disclose. For all of his disclosures and the companies he invests in or advises, he directs users to reach out independently, where he keeps an up-to-date and active list of all disclosures. The emergence of advanced biotherapeutics, especially cell and gene therapies, CGTs, marks a major shift in medicine, providing the possibility for long-lasting and sometimes curative treatments for previously difficult-to-treat diseases. This medical revolution is also causing a significant economic upheaval. The extraordinary cost and complexity of these therapies challenge the basic principles of healthcare reimbursement and finance, requiring a new strategic approach from payers, manufacturers, and healthcare providers. For health systems, adopting these groundbreaking treatments is a high-stakes decision that demands a careful understanding of the economic factors involved and innovative financial models to maintain both patient access and financial health. This guide offers a detailed financial and strategic overview for health system leaders, breaking down the challenges and presenting a practical framework for navigating this new landscape. The following 10 learning objectives summarize the core concepts and strategic guidance. First, it is important to distinguish between the complexities of various therapeutic modalities by comparing the structural, manufacturing, and regulatory differences among small molecule drugs, biologics, biosimilars, and cell and gene therapies. Analyzing the financial impact of cell and gene therapies involves understanding the reasons behind their extremely high costs and the concept known as the curative paradox, where a single treatment requires a significant upfront payment. Evaluating traditional payment systems reveals their inadequacy in reimbursing for the unique cost structure and one-time administration of cell and gene therapies. This analysis highlights the need for innovative payment models that address the core payer challenges, which include extreme budget impacts or financial shocks, clinical and durability uncertainties, also known as performance risks, and the patient portability problem. These challenges necessitate the development of new financial solutions. Differentiating between various innovative payment models involves understanding their specific aims in mitigating financial risk. These models include outcome-based contracts, installment or annuity plans, subscription models, and warranty-based arrangements. Applying strategic lessons from seminal case studies of outcome-based contracts, such as those for therapies like Kymriah, Zolgensma, and Luxturna, helps elucidate the practical feasibility, the selection of outcome metrics, and the administrative complexity involved in risk-sharing agreements. Developing a comprehensive financial model that calculates the total cost of care for a cell and gene therapy program is crucial. This model should extend beyond initial drug acquisition costs to include significant ancillary expenses, such as managing adverse events and investing in necessary infrastructure for a one-time setup. Constructing a value-based return on investment analysis involves quantifying future healthcare costs that a potentially curative therapy can prevent. This assessment supports reimbursement requests and contract negotiations by justifying the value of the therapy. Furthermore, outlining the key negotiable terms in manufacturer risk-sharing agreements is essential. These include establishing clear, objective outcome metrics, defining measurement timeframes, and addressing the challenge of patient portability. Finally, implementing outcome-based contracts requires core actions such as establishing robust, long-term data analytics infrastructure, and fostering a culture of collaborative partnership. These steps are vital to operationalize innovative payment models effectively. The emergence of advanced biotherapeutics, especially cell and gene therapies, CGTs, marks a major shift in medicine, offering the possibility of lasting and sometimes curative treatments for previously difficult diseases. However, this medical revolution brings an economic upheaval of similar scale. The extraordinary cost and complexity of these therapies challenge the core principles of healthcare reimbursement and finance, requiring a new strategic approach from payers, manufacturers, and provider organizations. For health systems, deciding to adopt these transformative treatments is a high-stakes decision that needs a detailed understanding of the therapies, the economic influences involved, and innovative financial models to ensure both patient access and the financial health of the institution. This report offers a thorough financial and strategic guide for health system leaders, breaking down the challenges and presenting a practical framework for navigating this new landscape. It starts by setting the scientific and economic context, describing the unique features of this new asset type, and examining the market forces that create the upcoming reimbursement challenges. To develop an effective financial strategy, it is crucial to first understand the fundamental scientific and structural differences between traditional pharmaceuticals and the newer generation of advanced biologics. These differences are more than academic. They are the underlying cause of manufacturing, regulatory, and cost challenges that affect the entire healthcare system. The inherent complexity of a therapy determines its development process, production costs, and final price, shaping the overall reimbursement landscape. Biologics are a diverse group of large, complex molecules derived from living organisms, such as human, animal, or microbial cells. This category includes a wide range of products, from vaccines and therapeutic proteins to monoclonal antibodies, which are essential in treating cancer and autoimmune diseases. Their defining trait is their immense structural complexity. While a traditional small molecule drug like aspirin contains only 21 atoms, a biologic can be made up of over 25,000 atoms, forming intricate three-dimensional structures vital to their function. This complexity has significant manufacturing implications. Unlike small molecule drugs, which are produced through predictable and reproducible chemical synthesis, biologics are cultivated in proprietary living cell lines via highly sensitive and intricate manufacturing processes. This biological production method results in a phenomenon called inherent variability, meaning that minor, clinically insignificant variations can occur even between different batches of the same product. As a result, the manufacturing process is just as important as the final product itself, requiring continuous monitoring and strict quality control. Regulation of biologics in the United States is governed by the Public Health Service Act, PHSA, which provides a more rigorous pathway than the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, FDCA, that oversees small molecules. Manufacturers must submit a biologics license application, BLA, with comprehensive data demonstrating the product's safety, purity, and potency to obtain approval from the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Cell and gene therapies, CGTs, are a specialized and revolutionary branch of biologics. They are defined by their therapeutic mechanism, changing or manipulating gene expression or altering the biological properties of living cells to treat or cure disease. Gene therapy works by replacing a faulty gene, inactivating a disease-causing gene, or adding a new gene to fight illness. Cell therapy involves introducing new, healthy, or genetically modified cells into a patient's body to replace or repair damaged cells or tissue. This includes groundbreaking treatments like chimeric antigen receptor, CAR, T-cell therapies, where a patient's own immune cells are engineered to recognize and destroy cancer cells. As leaders in biomedical innovation, CGTs often target rare and severe conditions with no other treatments available, offering the potential for a one-time, curative effect that can last a lifetime. However, their novel mechanisms and unique risks require an even more rigorous regulatory framework than traditional biologics, increasing their development complexity and cost. The high cost of biologics led to the development of a pathway for competitive products called biosimilars. A biosimilar is a biological product that is highly similar to an already FDA-approved biologic, known as the reference product. Crucially, A biosimilar must also have no clinically meaningful differences from its reference product in terms of safety, purity, and potency. Because of the inherent variability of biologics, biosimilars are not exact copies in the way generic drugs are to their brand name versions. The Biologics Price Competition and Innovation Act, BPCIA, of 2010 created an abbreviated approval pathway, designated 351K, for biosimilars. This pathway allows a biosimilar manufacturer to build on the extensive safety and efficacy data of the reference product, reducing the need for duplicative and costly clinical trials. This streamlined process results in lower development costs and, in turn, lower prices for patients and payers. A further distinction exists for biosimilars that earn an interchangeable designation from the FDA. This requires additional data demonstrating that the product can be expected to produce the same clinical result as the reference product in any patient and that switching between the two poses no additional risk. This designation is strategically important because it allows for automatic substitution at the pharmacy level, subject to state laws, similar to a generic drug. The scientific complexity of these therapies is the root of a cascade of economic and operational consequences. This complexity cascade starts with large, intricate molecular structures derived from living sources. This means they cannot be simply synthesized, but must be grown in sensitive, proprietary cell lines, a costly process that also introduces inherent batch-to-batch variability. This variability then demands a rigorous regulatory review. The FDA requires a BLA with exhaustive data to prove not only composition, but also clinical safety, purity, and potency. For biosimilars, the standard of highly similar, with no clinically meaningful differences, still requires significant comparative analysis. These extensive data requirements directly lead to longer and more costly development timelines compared to small molecules. Ultimately, the massive upfront investment in research, development, and specialized manufacturing must be recovered, which is the main reason for the high list prices that challenge health systems. This chain of effects shows that financial challenges are interconnected and are the downstream results of the underlying scientific complexity. A major strategic mistake for any health system is to confuse biosimilars with generic drugs. Although both aim to increase competition and lower costs, their scientific and economic foundations are quite different. The regulatory requirement for generics is bioequivalence, meaning they are exact chemical copies. In contrast, biosimilars must demonstrate high similarity, a process that is much more complex and costly. Developing a biosimilar costs between $100 million and $250 million, whereas a typical generic costs only $1 million to $4 million. Due to this high investment, biosimilar manufacturers cannot offer the massive 80 to 90% price reductions seen with generics. Instead, they tend to launch with smaller discounts, usually between 15 to 35% of the reference drug's price. This means health systems cannot count on near total cost savings when a biologic faces competition. Financial planning, formulary strategies, and provider incentives need to reflect the unique economic profile of biosimilars, which involves slower price decreases and requires more active efforts to promote adoption and achieve savings. The unique scientific characteristics of advanced biotherapeutics give rise to a new economic paradigm marked by exceptionally high costs and innovative market behaviors. Understanding these forces is crucial for any healthcare system aiming to manage the financial impact of these therapies. There is a significant economic gap between traditional drugs and biological therapies. For instance, the average daily cost of biological treatment can be more than 20 times higher than that of a small molecule drug, $45 compared to $2. In the year 2022, the average cost per prescription for a biological product was $174, which is approximately 3.7 times greater than the $48 average for a small molecule drug. This premium price reflects the prolonged, complex, and capital-intensive processes involved in developing and manufacturing these therapies. Cell and gene therapies represent the peak of this cost curve. As treatments that can potentially cure a condition with a single administration, their prices are often set to reflect a lifetime of value. This pricing approach results in list prices that can range from hundreds of thousands to over $3 million for a single dose. Such pricing creates what can be called a curative paradox. The feature that makes these therapies so clinically valuable, their ability to act as a one-time cure, is also the primary source of significant financial difficulty. The value of the therapy is realized over the course of a patient's lifetime, yet the full payment is usually required up front. This mismatch between the timing of the cost and the benefits of the therapy presents a structural problem that traditional payment systems are ill-equipped to handle. Furthermore, the market for these high-cost therapies tends to be dominated by a single manufacturer for an extended period. In the year 2022, 87% of specialty biologic drugs and 100% of the highest-priced biologic drugs were produced by only one manufacturer. This concentration of market power helps sustain high prices and limits competition. Biosimilars were introduced as a key market-based solution to reduce expenses on biologics. By encouraging competition, biosimilars have proven to lower prices for both themselves and their reference products, resulting in significant savings for the healthcare system. Typically, biosimilars enter the market at list prices 15 to 35% lower than the reference biologic, and their availability has already saved billions of dollars in healthcare costs. Despite this savings potential, adopting biosimilars faces major structural hurdles within the U.S. reimbursement system. The reimbursement structure itself can serve as a hidden barrier to cost savings. A prime example is the buy-and-bill model common under Medicare Part B, where providers purchase physician-administered drugs and are reimbursed by Medicare at the drug's average sales price, ASP, plus a 6% fee. This model can create a harmful financial incentive. For example, if an originator biologic has an ASP of $1,000, the provider gets a $60 add-on payment, $1,000 x 6%. If a biosimilar is available with an ASP of $700, the add-on payment drops to $42, $700 x 6%. In this case, the provider's margin is greater when prescribing the more expensive drug. This creates a direct conflict of interest, where the financially rational choice for the provider is the higher-cost option, which is also more costly for the healthcare system. This shows that just introducing a lower-cost alternative isn't enough. Without reforming the underlying payment incentives, the full cost-saving potential of biosimilars may remain unrealized. Additionally, other federal programs, such as the 340B drug pricing program, can create complex financial incentives that may discourage using lower-cost biosimilars in certain hospital settings. The introduction of cell and gene therapies has revealed significant structural limitations within existing reimbursement frameworks. Their unique clinical profile, often a one-time, potentially curative treatment, and their unprecedented price tags create a perfect storm of financial challenges for payers and providers alike. This section breaks down why traditional payment models are fundamentally ill-equipped to support these innovations and outlines the three main challenges that define the payer dilemma. Conventional reimbursement systems in the United States were designed for an era focused on managing chronic diseases and procedural care. They are built on transactional, fee-for-service principles or prospective payment systems that do not align with the value proposition and cost structure of CGTs. The main payment model for inpatient hospital care, especially within Medicare, is the Diagnosis-Related Group, DRG system. Under this system, a hospital receives a single, fixed payment for a patient's entire stay, covering all services, procedures, and drugs based on the patient's diagnosis. The DRG system aims to encourage efficiency in high-volume, predictable clinical cases. However, it cannot effectively handle low-volume, ultra-high-cost technologies like CGTs. The initial experience with CAR T-cell therapies highlights this problem clearly. When these therapies first received approval, they were categorized under existing DRGs for procedures like bone marrow transplants. The payment rates for these DRGs were much lower than the actual cost of the CAR T product alone, causing hospitals to incur significant financial losses per patient. In response, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, eventually introduced a new, higher-paying Medicare Severity DRG, MSDRG 018, specifically for CAR T and other immunotherapies. However, this process is reactive and slow. Even with new DRGs and temporary new technology add-on payments and TAPs, reimbursement may still fall short of covering total care costs, leaving provider institutions vulnerable financially, especially as these temporary payment adjustments end. The broader healthcare payment system is mainly built around a pay-as-you-go approach for managing chronic illnesses. Payments are made gradually over time as services are provided and medications are given. CGTs completely disrupt this system by front-loading what could be a lifetime of therapeutic benefit and cost into a single treatment event. This one-time infusion requires a large, upfront payment, which conflicts with the annual budget cycles and cash flow practices of both public and private payers. This mismatch reveals what can be called the actuarial gamble of modern health insurance. For payers, the financial risk of chronic care is manageable because it is spread across a large group and over time. CGTs change this manageable risk into a catastrophic, lottery-like event. A single patient needing a $3 million therapy could disrupt the entire annual budget of a small health plan, a state Medicaid agency, or a self-insured employer. For instance, providing a $2 million gene therapy to all eligible Medicaid beneficiaries with sickle cell disease would require an estimated additional budget of $120 billion. This shifts the financial challenge from managing population health statistically to handling catastrophic events, a much riskier and more dangerous type of risk that forces payers to implement restrictive access policies out of financial necessity. The failure of traditional models in the healthcare industry has led to a set of interconnected challenges that define the current difficulties faced by payers when dealing with cellular gene therapies. These challenges are the main reasons driving the development of innovative contracting and risk-sharing agreements. One of the most pressing issues is the significant financial impact. The upfront cost for a single treatment can exceed $3 million, which can cause a financial shock to payers' budgets. This is especially problematic for state Medicaid programs with fixed annual budgets, regional health plans, and self-insured employers. Even a small number of patients requiring cellular gene therapies can threaten their financial stability. This situation is not just an incremental increase in costs that can be easily managed through minor adjustments in premiums. Instead, it represents a dramatic increase in financial exposure that necessitates a new approach to managing risks. Challenge 2 involves uncertainty regarding clinical outcomes and durability. The primary issue is the misalignment between payment structures and the actual clinical evidence supporting treatments. Payers are often asked to make substantial payments upfront for therapies that promise benefits over many years or even a lifetime. Many gene and cell therapies are approved based on clinical trials with relatively small patient groups and limited long-term follow-up data. This situation introduces significant performance risk for the payer, who bears the full financial burden at the outset. There is considerable uncertainty regarding the long-term durability of the treatment's effects and whether its effectiveness in real-world settings will match the results observed in controlled clinical trials. Challenge 3. The patient portability problem. The third challenge arises from the unique characteristics of the American healthcare system. This system is highly fragmented, leading to frequent changes in health insurance plans due to job transitions or other life events. This situation results in a common issue known as the wrong pocket problem or spillover problem. In such cases, a healthcare payer may cover the significant upfront costs associated with a curative cell and gene therapy for a patient within a single year. However, if the patient switches to a different health insurance plan the following year, the first payer bears all of the costs incurred. Meanwhile, subsequent payers benefit from the long-term financial savings achieved through avoided chronic care expenses, such as fewer hospitalizations and a reduced need for ongoing medication. This scenario creates a strong disincentive for any single payer to invest in a long-term cure. Payers risk paying for the treatment, only to see the patient switch plans and the benefits accrue to a competitor's plan instead. This dynamic discourages investments in long-term health solutions because the initial payer does not directly benefit from the future cost savings or health improvements resulting from the cure. These three challenges, budget shock, performance risk, and patient portability, are not separate issues but a closely connected triad that creates a natural negotiation impasse in traditional payer-manufacturer discussions. The manufacturer, having invested heavily in a long-term asset, wants to be compensated for its full lifetime value upfront. The payer, working within a short-term budget, aims to reduce the immediate financial shock while managing the risks of long-term underperformance and patient churn. Their core definitions of value and risk tolerance are misaligned. A standard price negotiation cannot fix this conflict. The manufacturer cannot lower the price enough to address the budget shock without devaluing their innovation, and the payer cannot accept the full, concentrated risk. This deadlock is precisely why risk-sharing through innovative payment models is not just an option, but a structural necessity to give patients access to these transformative therapies. In response to the significant challenges of high-cost, one-time therapies, a new ecosystem of innovative payment models, IPMs, has emerged. These models represent a major shift from traditional fee-for-service reimbursement, aiming to better align payments with value, manage financial risk, and promote the sustainability of the healthcare system. This section offers a strategic framework for understanding these models, providing a comparative analysis of the leading approaches and a detailed review of outcomes-based contracting supported by key real-world case studies. IPMs are not a single solution but a range of financial arrangements, each designed to address specific aspects of the payer dilemma. Health system leaders need to understand the mechanics, strengths, and weaknesses of each model to select or combine them into a cohesive strategy. Outcomes-based contracts or risk-sharing agreements are fundamental to value-based reimbursement models. These agreements establish a direct link between payment for a therapy and the achievement of predetermined clinical or economic outcomes in a patient or population. This approach shifts the financial risk of therapy underperformance from the payer to the pharmaceutical manufacturer. Outcomes-based contracts can be structured in various ways. The most common approach involves the payer providing an upfront payment, with the manufacturer agreeing to provide a partial or full rebate if the outcomes specified in the contract are not achieved. A less common structure involves milestone-based payments, where the payer disburses funds only after evidence of successful outcomes is demonstrated. The primary goal of these agreements is to reduce the performance risk and clinical uncertainty associated with new, high-cost treatments. To address the issue of sticker shock, annuity or installment models spread the high upfront cost of a therapy over a multi-year period. Instead of a single multi-million-dollar payment, the payer makes a series of smaller, predictable payments over time, akin to a mortgage. This model's primary objective is to mitigate the acute, budget impact of the therapy, making it more manageable from a cash flow perspective, which is particularly beneficial for smaller payers, state Medicaid programs, and self-insured employers with less capacity to absorb large, unexpected costs. These models can be simple amortization plans or can be combined with performance metrics to create an outcomes-based annuity, where installment payments are contingent on the therapy's continued effectiveness. Inspired by the digital media industry, the subscription model involves a payer negotiating a fixed fee with a manufacturer for unlimited access to a specific therapy for their entire eligible patient population over a set period. This approach effectively disconnects payment from the volume of drug units dispensed, offering complete budget predictability for the payer and a guaranteed, stable revenue stream for the manufacturer. This model has been successfully applied to curative therapies targeting common conditions, such as hepatitis C in states like Louisiana and Washington, where the public health goal is to eliminate the disease at the population level. Although less common for rare disease CGTs, the idea of budget certainty makes it an appealing option for managing the overall impact of multiple high-cost therapies. A more recent innovation, the warranty model, involves the manufacturer purchasing a patient-specific warranty policy from a third-party entity, such as a reinsurance company. This warranty contractually agrees to reimburse the payer, and sometimes the patient, for treatment-related costs if the therapy fails to achieve pre-specified outcomes. This model effectively transfers the performance risk from the payer to the manufacturer and its third-party insurance partner. A potential advantage of this model is that it can streamline the negotiation process, as the manufacturer often develops the warranty terms and metrics without direct payer input, although this also reduces the payer's ability to customize the agreement. These IPMs are not mutually exclusive. Indeed, The most sophisticated financial strategies recognize them as stackable solutions that can be combined to address the multifaceted payer dilemma. A health systems negotiation strategy should not be to select a single best model, but rather to construct a hybrid arrangement that addresses its specific risk profile and financial constraints. For example, the landmark access program for Zolgensma offered payers both pay-over-time options and outcomes-based agreements, demonstrating a modular approach that simultaneously tackles budget impact and performance risk. An outcomes-based annuity is another powerful hybrid, combining the cash flow relief of an installment plan with the performance guarantee of an OBC. This modularity allows for highly customized financial solutions tailored to the specific therapy, disease state, and payer environment. Moving from theory to practice, an analysis of the pioneering OBCs for the first wave of approved CGTs provides invaluable lessons in contract structure, metric selection, and implementation. These real-world examples illuminate both the potential and the pitfalls of risk-sharing in this new therapeutic era. Case Study 1. Zolgensma for spinal muscular atrophy. Zolgensma, developed by Novartis and Avezize, is a one-time gene therapy designed to treat spinal muscular atrophy, a devastating pediatric disease. The therapy was launched at a landmark price of $2,125,000. To address the challenges associated with high cost and uncertainty about long-term effectiveness, the manufacturer introduced a flexible, hybrid access program. This program included a payment plan allowing customers to spread the cost over up to 5 years to help manage the budget impact. Additionally, the program featured an outcomes-based agreement lasting up to 5 years, where a portion of the therapy's cost was at risk depending on the ongoing performance of Zolgensma. Although the specific contractual details remain confidential, the clinical trials demonstrating the therapy's efficacy focused on survival rates and achieving significant motor milestones, such as sitting without support. These milestones are typically not achieved in untreated cases of the disease, indicating the therapy's transformative impact. These clinical endpoints likely served as the basis for measuring success in the financial agreements. A key learning from this case is that Zolgensma established an important precedent by proactively offering a hybrid payment model that addressed two primary concerns of payers: the shock of a high upfront cost and the risk of uncertain long-term performance. The manufacturer's willingness to provide flexibility and share risk has paved the way for future negotiations and innovations in payment models within the healthcare field. Case Study 2. Kymriah, tisagenlecleucel, for B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Kymriah is the first CAR T-cell therapy approved in the United States. It was launched by Novartis with a list price of $475,000 for the treatment of pediatric and young adult patients with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. In an innovative development, Novartis announced a payment structure based on outcomes in the United States. Under this outcome-based contract, payment was made contingent on the patient's response within the first month after infusion. If a patient did not respond by the 30th day, the hospital would not be charged for the therapy. This model was adapted for other markets. For example, in Germany, the agreement involved providing a partial refund if the patient died within a specified period. The agreement in the United States was based on a single, short-term, yet clinically significant endpoint: the patient's response at 30 days. While this approach demonstrated the potential for a simple no-response, no-pay payment model based on a short-term outcome, it faced numerous hurdles. The initial demonstration agreement with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services was quietly abandoned, highlighting the considerable administrative, legal, and bureaucratic challenges involved in establishing such innovative contracts with government payers. Despite strong initial support from all parties, these complexities impeded widespread adoption. This case study examines the use of Luxturna, a gene therapy developed by Spark Therapeutics to treat a rare form of inherited blindness. The therapy is administered as a one-time treatment and was priced at $425,000 per eye, resulting in a total treatment cost of $850,000. Spark Therapeutics implemented an outcomes-based rebate arrangement for this product. Under this model, payers paid the full price up front, but were eligible to receive a rebate from the manufacturer if the therapy did not meet certain predefined performance standards. The contract for Luxturna was designed to evaluate both short-term efficacy and long-term durability of the treatment. Outcome assessments were conducted at intervals of 30 to 90 days and again at 30 months, using objective tests that measured light sensitivity thresholds in the retina. This model was pioneering in two significant ways. First, it explicitly included a measure of long-term durability within the contract, directly addressing a primary concern of payers regarding the longevity of treatment benefits. Second, Spark Therapeutics introduced an innovative distribution approach in which the payer or their specialty pharmacy purchased the drug directly from the manufacturer. This bypassed the traditional buy-and-bill system, thereby reducing financial risks and administrative burdens for treatment centers. This strategy played a crucial role in facilitating the adoption of the therapy by healthcare providers. These case studies show that the operational footprint of an OBC can vary greatly depending on its design. A contract based on a 30-day response metric, like Kymriah, is relatively straightforward to manage, since the outcome can be measured during the initial episode of care and likely under a single payer. In stark contrast, a contract that assesses durability over 30 months, Luxturna, or 5 years, Zolgensma, presents a significant operational challenge. It requires a sophisticated, long-term patient tracking system that can follow a patient over time and potentially across different health plans and provider systems, directly addressing the patient portability issue. This has significant implications for a health system's decision to pursue such an agreement. The selection of the outcome metric and its time horizon is not just a clinical or financial choice. It is a key strategic decision with major operational, technological, and cost implications that must be carefully considered. This section offers a practical playbook for health system leadership, incorporating the previous analysis into a clear financial strategy for effectively onboarding a new cell or gene therapy. The framework progresses from a detailed cost analysis to advanced financial modeling and ends with a guide to negotiating effective risk-sharing agreements with manufacturers. A successful financial strategy begins with a detailed understanding of the total cost of ownership for a CGT program. Focusing solely on the therapy's wholesale acquisition cost, WAC, is a critical planning mistake, as the additional costs related to patient management and program infrastructure can be significant, sometimes matching or surpassing the drug's price itself. The total cost of care, rather than the drug price, should be the key metric for all financial modeling and payer negotiations. Using CAR-T therapy as an example, the cost components can be divided into 4 main areas. This is typically the most visible and often the largest single component, with list prices for currently approved CAR-T therapies ranging from $373,000 to $475,000 per patient. However, this figure is only the starting point, since the overall cost of care for a single patient can easily exceed $1 million, especially if serious complications occur. These are the extensive medical services required to safely and effectively administer the therapy. They represent a significant and often underestimated portion of the total cost. The pre-infusion phase involves a comprehensive evaluation of the patient to confirm their eligibility for treatment. This phase also includes leukapheresis, a procedure to collect the patient's T cells, and often involves bridging therapy, such as chemotherapy to control the disease, while the personalized chimeric antigen receptor T cell therapy is being manufactured over several weeks. During the peri-infusion phase, the patient undergoes lymphodepleting chemotherapy to prepare their body for the engineered cells. Before the infusion, the patient is conditioned with chemotherapy, and the infusion itself is typically followed by a mandatory inpatient hospital stay for intensive monitoring, which significantly contributes to the overall cost. The post-infusion phase is the most variable and potentially costly part of the treatment. Patients require close supervision for severe and life-threatening adverse events, including cytokine release syndrome and neurotoxicity syndrome associated with immune effector cells. Managing these toxicities may necessitate prolonged stays in intensive care units, specialized medications, and extensive supportive care, which substantially increase the costs. The long-term follow-up phase includes monitoring for potential side effects such as B-cell aplasia, a condition that can require ongoing immunoglobulin replacement therapy. These infusions can cost between $5,000 and $10,000 per month, adding a significant long-term economic burden to the overall treatment costs. These are the significant one-time investments a health system must make to establish a certified CGT program. These costs are often overlooked in per-patient calculations, but are a critical part of the overall financial picture. Establishing strong quality assurance systems and processes is essential for a successful cellular therapy program. This aspect can also represent the largest portion of implementation costs, sometimes accounting for up to 77% of the total expenses. These costs include developing hundreds of standard operating procedures and obtaining necessary certifications, such as those from the Foundation for the Accreditation of Cellular Therapy and manufacturer-specific risk evaluation and mitigation strategies. A dedicated, multidisciplinary team of highly trained specialists is required to run a cellular therapy program effectively. Hiring these professionals and providing ongoing education and training for them constitute a significant investment. Overall, the initial one-time cost to implement a new chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy program at an academic medical center is estimated to be approximately $1.31 million. While not a direct cost to the hospital, these factors are critical for ensuring patient access and must be considered in the overall program strategy. Because CGT administration is concentrated in a limited number of specialized centers of excellence, COEs, many patients must travel long distances for care. The associated costs for travel, lodging, and lost wages for both the patient and their caregiver can be substantial and represent a significant barrier to access. Justifying the substantial investment detailed above requires a sophisticated approach to financial modeling that moves beyond simple cost-plus accounting to demonstrate a clear return on investment, ROI. The ROI calculation itself becomes a powerful strategic tool, not just for internal approval, but for external negotiations with payers. The fundamental return on investment formula is the ratio of the net financial returns generated by an investment to the cost of that investment. The financial investment, which serves as the denominator in this calculation, is known as the total cost of care. This total cost should be calculated by including both the one-time costs associated with implementing the program and the variable costs incurred per patient for the entire episode of care. The numerator of the formula, representing net financial returns, is the most critical and complex component to model. It is important to note that this is not simply the reimbursement received from a payer. A comprehensive and robust model must account for the full spectrum of financial gains. This includes direct revenue, costs avoided downstream, and strategic value. Properly capturing these elements provides a clearer picture of the true financial impact of the investment. A credible ROI model for a CGT program must look beyond the immediate transaction and quantify the long-term value created. The section titled Direct Revenue refers to the payments received from the payer for the care episode involving cryoglobulin testing. The amount obtained is heavily influenced by the specific contractual agreement, whether it is a standard diagnosis-related group payment, a bundled case rate, or an innovative payment model, such as an outcomes-based contract. The financial model should be capable of simulating different scenarios based on various reimbursement structures. Cost avoidance, which represents the value component, is central to calculating a return on investment based on value. This component is crucial for demonstrating a positive financial return. The model must estimate future healthcare costs that are avoided due to the potentially curative cryoglobulin testing. This involves creating a counterfactual scenario, a projection of what the total care costs would have been over 5 or 10 years had the previous standard of care remained in place. These costs include expenses related to repeated hospital stays, ongoing medication therapies, subsequent treatment lines, and end-of-life care, all of which are now prevented. Although this cost avoidance primarily benefits the payer, accurately quantifying it is essential for the provider to substantiate reimbursement requests. Strategic value, while more challenging to quantify precisely in financial terms, should also be recognized within the model. This includes intangible benefits that contribute to the long-term financial health of the institution. Such benefits encompass an improved reputation as a center of excellence, the ability to attract more high-margin patients, gaining a competitive market advantage, and the opportunity to participate in profitable clinical trials. The process of developing this ROI model is not just an internal financial activity. It also serves as a strategic negotiation tool. The model's results, especially the strong quantification of avoided downstream costs for the payer, become the key evidence-based point in contract discussions. It shifts the focus from a cost-based debate, "This is how much the therapy costs our hospital," to a value-based one, "This is how much long-term value our program delivers to your health plan." By providing a data-supported case that a $1.2 million initial investment prevents $2.5 million in future expenditures for the payer, the health system can justify higher reimbursement rates and push for value-based contracts that promote sharing the benefits created. The ROI model thus evolves from a defensive tool for internal budget approval to an offensive tool for value-driven negotiations. Armed with a thorough understanding of costs and a value-based ROI model, the health system can effectively negotiate with manufacturers to establish an outcomes-based contract. A successful negotiation depends on building trust, setting clear and measurable terms, and creating a balanced risk-reward framework. The key to any successful risk-sharing agreement is shifting from an adversarial to a collaborative mindset. Both the health system and the manufacturer need to approach negotiations with transparency, openly sharing their goals, constraints, and definitions of value. The goal should be to co-create a win-win agreement that ensures patient access, encourages therapeutic innovation, and preserves financial sustainability for the provider. The negotiation should prioritize a detailed term sheet that clearly outlines the mechanics of the risk-sharing arrangement. This is a central aspect of the contract and often the most challenging part of the negotiation. It is essential that the outcome metrics selected are clinically meaningful to patients, defined objectively, and, most importantly, feasible to measure and track in a real-world clinical setting. There is an inherent tension between choosing long-term outcomes that are most meaningful, such as overall survival, and short-term outcomes that are easier to measure, like biomarkers. Negotiations generally revolve around finding an acceptable balance along this spectrum. Examples from established case studies serve as useful guides. A 30-day clinical response for Kymriah, achieving transfusion independence for Zynteglo, and objective light sensitivity scores for Luxturna. The contract must also specify precisely when the outcomes will be assessed. Short-term endpoints, assessed within 30 to 90 days, typically involve a smaller operational footprint compared to long-term durability endpoints, which may require data collection over 2 to 5 years and thus necessitate a more robust data infrastructure. It is important that the agreement clearly defines the eligible patient population to which the outcome-based contract applies. This includes detailed inclusion and exclusion criteria to prevent future disputes. The financial structure of the risk-sharing arrangement must be explicit. A common model involves a rebate for failure. The payer or provider pays up front and receives a refund if the outcome is not achieved. The contract should specify the rebate amount, which can be up to 80% of the wholesale acquisition cost, as was offered for Zynteglo. Alternatively, the contract could be designed around milestone payments for success, which shifts more initial risk to the manufacturer. Finally, the agreement must outline the operational plan for data collection and governance. This includes defining the source of truth for outcome data, such as electronic medical records or patient registries, the process for data sharing and validation between parties, and the timeline and mechanisms for financial reconciliation and settlement. A well-negotiated outcomes-based contract is worthless if it cannot be effectively implemented. The operational, technological, and cultural requirements for making these complex agreements succeed are significant. This final section discusses the importance of implementation, focusing on 3 key pillars: a strong data analytics engine, a culture of collaboration, and streamlined internal processes. Outcomes-based contracts are fundamentally data-driven financial tools. Their success relies entirely on the health system's ability to accurately and efficiently gather, analyze, and report on patient outcomes over time. Many health systems see the need for this advanced data capability as a result of signing an OBC, but this is a strategic mistake. Investing in a robust, longitudinal data platform should be viewed as a basic requirement that allows the organization to even consider engaging in complex risk-sharing arrangements. The importance of data cannot be overstated. All forms of value-based care, particularly outpatient-based care models, rely heavily on a modern information technology infrastructure and advanced data analytics capabilities. The ability to integrate clinical and financial data from separate, siloed systems forms the foundation of any effective value-based strategy. A health system's data infrastructure must possess several essential capabilities to support outcomes-based contracts. First, it needs to integrate data from a wide variety of sources, including electronic health records, payer claims data, laboratory and imaging systems, as well as external patient registries. This integration should create a single, unified, and longitudinal record for each patient. The infrastructure must also be capable of tracking individual patient outcomes over extended periods, often spanning multiple years. This aspect is particularly challenging within the fragmented United States healthcare system, as it must account for patient movement between different providers and insurance plans. Additionally, the system should support automated measurement of health outcomes by applying the contractual logic to the integrated data. This allows for the automatic identification of whether outcome milestones have been met or missed, triggering alerts necessary for financial reconciliation. Finally, the infrastructure must offer all stakeholders, including clinical and financial teams, payers, and manufacturers, transparent and accessible dashboards. These dashboards should provide clear, actionable, and trustworthy insights into contract performance and patient progress, available in near real time. Without this foundational data infrastructure, any OBC is destined to fail under the weight of its administrative complexity. Therefore, the cost of building or acquiring these capabilities must be factored into the initial ROI calculation for the entire CGT program as a non-negotiable, strategic investment. Beyond technology, implementing OBCs requires a profound cultural shift. The traditional, often adversarial and transactional relationships between providers, payers, and manufacturers must evolve into a collaborative partnership focused on a shared goal. A new relationship model emphasizes the importance of value-based partnerships. These partnerships require a foundation built on mutual trust, transparency, and a shared vision focused on achieving the best possible outcomes for patients. Such an approach involves moving beyond traditional zero-sum price negotiations and instead concentrating on creating value for all parties involved. This shift fosters more collaborative and effective relationships that prioritize patient health and overall value. Strategies for building trust involve several key steps. First, it is essential to define a shared ambition by establishing a clear and common purpose that aligns the individual goals of each partner with the overarching aim of improving patient health. This helps create a unified direction for the collaboration. Second, embracing transparency is crucial. Partners should communicate openly and honestly, sharing data, discussing challenges, and being transparent about their respective constraints and objectives. Third, establishing clear governance involves creating a formal structure with defined roles, responsibilities, and decision-making processes. This structure is vital for managing the partnership effectively and preventing conflicts from arising. Finally, utilizing pilot projects can be beneficial. Before committing to large-scale and long-term agreements, stakeholders can implement smaller pilot projects to test the collaboration's mechanics, refine processes, and build relational trust on a manageable scale. The final pillar is the optimization of the health system's internal processes to support the unique demands of CGT delivery and value-based contracting. Standardization and efficiency are essential in healthcare contract management. The current approach, which involves negotiating and managing customized, one-of-a-kind outcomes-based contracts, is not sustainable over the long term. Health systems should collaborate with their partners to develop standardized contract templates that can be used across multiple therapies and agreements. They should also establish common data collection frameworks and streamlined reconciliation processes. These measures will help reduce administrative burdens, friction, and costs, ultimately making contract management more efficient. The emergence of centralized bodies to oversee complex agreements presents a promising way forward. One example is the Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance Program cell and gene therapy access model. In this model, a central organization negotiates key terms and manages the reconciliation of data on behalf of multiple payers. This approach significantly reduces the administrative workload for individual states and manufacturers. Health systems have the opportunity to support and engage in similar private sector initiatives. Successfully managing a cell and gene therapy program within an organized business unit requires breaking down internal silos. Clinical workflows for patient care must be seamlessly integrated with financial, information technology, and legal workflows, especially for contract management and outcome tracking. This integration necessitates the creation of dedicated, cross-functional governance teams responsible for overseeing the entire process, from the identification of patients to the final financial settlement. Ultimately, the significant challenge of implementing an OBC for a multi-million-dollar therapy can act as a strong catalyst for system-wide transformation. The infrastructure, collaborative relationships, and focus on outcomes needed to manage a CGT program are the same skills required for success in all forms of value-based care, such as accountable care organizations, ACOs, or bundled payments. The high stakes of a CGT program create a burning platform that can drive an organization to make the tough but essential investments in data, partnerships, and process redesign. Therefore, investing in a CGT program should be viewed not just as a standalone effort, but as a strategic move to build the core capabilities for the future of healthcare reimbursement. The insights and infrastructure developed for this one service line can then be used across the entire organization, sparking a ripple effect of transformation and delivering much greater long-term ROI. The era of cell and gene therapy is no longer future. It has arrived, bringing both exceptional therapeutic potential and significant financial hurdles. For health systems to succeed in this new environment, they must go beyond traditional operational and financial models and adopt a proactive, strategic, and value-focused approach. This final section summarizes the report's findings into practical recommendations for health system leadership and provides a perspective on the future development of CGT reimbursement. Launching a CGT program requires coordinated leadership across the C-suite. The following recommendations are aimed at the key decision-makers responsible for this strategic initiative. The Chief Financial Officer should mandate a comprehensive total cost of care framework. This approach prohibits financial modeling that focuses solely on the acquisition cost of the drug. Instead, all business cases and financial projections for new coordinated care and treatment programs should be based on a fully loaded analysis that includes all ancillary services, supportive care, and infrastructure investments, as detailed in Part 4. Additionally, it is important to champion upfront investment in a robust, longitudinal data analytics platform. This investment should not be considered merely an operational expense, but rather a strategic, capital-level prerequisite for entering the coordinated care and treatment market. Such infrastructure serves as an enabling asset that makes risk-sharing and value-based contracting feasible and should be included in the initial return on investment calculation for the entire program. Furthermore, the Chief Financial Officer should prioritize hybrid payment models when negotiating with both manufacturers and payers. These models should be designed to mitigate multiple forms of risk simultaneously and include stackable, innovative payment structures. For example, outcomes-based annuities can address the immediate budget impact through installment payments while managing long-term performance risk through outcomes-based contingencies. For the Director of Pharmacy and the Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee, it is essential to lead in defining measurable outcomes. This involves leveraging the committee's clinical expertise to take a leading role in establishing outcome metrics for negotiations related to outpatient biosimilar coverage. The focus should be on identifying metrics that strike an optimal balance between being clinically meaningful for patients and being objectively and feasibly measurable within the health system's existing workflows and data systems. Additionally, it is crucial to develop and implement a proactive biosimilar strategy across the entire system. This strategy should go beyond merely placing these medications on formularies. It must actively address and counteract the perverse financial incentives associated with reimbursement models, such as the average sales price plus 6%. To do so, provider education, shared savings programs, and other targeted interventions should be employed to ensure that the potential for cost savings through the use of biosimilars is fully realized. For the Chief Strategy Officer and Chief Operating Officer, it is important to leverage the clinical genomics team as a catalyst for value-based care. This can be achieved by positioning the clinical genomics team program internally as a high-stakes, learning laboratory that supports the organization's transition toward value-driven healthcare. Designing the program's governance structure, data infrastructure, and collaborative partnerships intentionally will ensure that the capabilities developed can be scaled and replicated across various service lines. Additionally, it is essential to move beyond traditional transactional and often adversarial relationships with manufacturers and payers. Building long-term, trust-based partnerships should be a priority, with a focus on shared goals such as improving patient outcomes and ensuring sustainable access to innovations. These conversations should be initiated early in the process, ideally well before formal contract negotiations begin. The future of coverage and reimbursement for cell and gene therapies is still developing rapidly. Leaders within healthcare systems need to stay informed about several key trends that will influence this evolving market. One major factor is the increasing cumulative financial impact associated with the growing pipeline of therapies. Currently, only a few gene and cell therapies have been approved, but it is expected that between 10 and 20 new therapies will gain approval each year by 2025. This expansion will significantly raise costs, even for the largest national health payers, creating a pressing need for innovative payment models to manage these expenses effectively. Another important development is the movement towards standardization and broader scalability in pricing and reimbursement processes. The existing approach, which often involves negotiating individualized, case-by-case agreements for each therapy with each payer, is administratively complex and unsustainable on a larger scale. The industry is likely to shift towards greater standardization, partly driven by government initiatives such as the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services efforts to streamline negotiations for Medicaid. Additionally, third-party administrators or clearinghouses may emerge to handle complex contracts more efficiently for private insurance providers. Furthermore, the role of real-world evidence is set to become increasingly significant. As initial patient cohorts receive these therapies and are followed over time, a wealth of real-world data regarding their long-term effectiveness and durability will be generated. This information will be crucial in shaping reimbursement policies and contract structures. Expect to see more sophisticated and dynamic contracts that adjust pricing and rebates as new evidence of a therapy's long-term value emerges. For manufacturers and healthcare systems alike, the ability to generate, analyze, and utilize high-quality real-world evidence will become a vital competitive advantage in an environment increasingly focused on value-based healthcare. This was an episode of the Nexus Clinical Podcast. This is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient or pharmacist-patient relationship is formed. Using this information and the materials linked to this content is at the user's risk. This is not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay seeking medical advice for any medical condition they have, and they should consult their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Clinical experts created the references, content, and clinical insight. NotebookLM, a Google AI tool, created the content, which I extensively reviewed before release. Finally, the host states that he takes all conflicts of interest seriously. Currently, there are no conflicts to disclose. For all of his disclosures and the companies he invests in or advises, he directs users to reach out independently, where he keeps an up-to-date and active list of all disclosures.